Supreme Court Justice Judge Sotomayor recently wrote a strongly worded dissent on a ruling involving unreasonable search and seizure. Now, this comes after a 5-3 majority ruling that ruled that prosecutors may present evidence that was unlawfully collected by police officers, which basically reverses an earlier Utah Supreme Court decision. Now, in her dissent to the ruling in Utah versus Strieff, which was a case involving a man named Edward Strieff, who was questioned by police despite not doing anything openly illegal. Now let me do a quick breakdown of what this case is about in case you don't know. Now the officer basically did not suspect that Strieff had done anything wrong. He just happened to be the first person to leave the house that the officer thought might contain illicit drug activity. And because of that, he was stopped illegally, forced to give his ID. And when an ID, a warrant check, was ran on his ID, they discovered that he had a warrant for not paying a small traffic ticket. So that of course led to his arrest, and while they searched him, they ended up finding methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia. Now, the state of Utah obviously arrested him, tried him, and said that they found that his arrest was illegal. So some of that evidence, that drug evidence, is inadmissible in court because of the illegality of the collection of this evidence. It was collected during an illegal stop. However, the Supreme Court disagrees with that assessment and has overturned this ruling. Now, Clarence Thomas argued that the costs of exclusion outweighs its deterrent benefits. Ooh. Not good. Now, let's get to the dissent from Sotomayor. She writes that the court today holds that the discovery of a warrant for an unpaid parking ticket will forgive a police officer's violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. Do not be soothed by the opinion's technical language. This case allows the police to stop you in the street, demand your identification, and check it for outstanding traffic warrants, even if you are doing nothing wrong. If the officer discovers a warrant for a fine you forgot to pay, courts will not excuse his illegal stop and will admit into evidence anything he happens to find by searching you after arresting you on that warrant. Because the Fourth Amendment should prohibit, not permit, such misconduct, I dissent. So she begins her dissent by writing that. Now, for me, it's pretty clear. The Fourth Amendment, the whole purpose of it, makes it so you can't be detained by an officer for no reason. But now apparently it seems like if a cop thinks you're suspicious or comes from a suspicious area, well then he can stop you. He can ask for your ID, he can run it, and if you do have a warrant on you, if you've done something wrong, or forgot to pay a parking ticket, or was jaywalking once, or something, well, you're hosed. Great. And of course, whenever we deal with the justice system, there's always the fact that it will target minorities unfairly. Because who is more suspicious to a cop? A black kid in a hoodie or a white guy in a suit? I mean, let's be honest. What do you think of? All the while, that white guy in a suit could be ripping you off in your mortgage. But of course, sadly, most people would opt towards saying that the kid in a hoodie, much more suspicious. Because that man in a suit, oh, he's an upstanding citizen. How could he ever do anything wrong or illegal? But that black kid in a hoodie, you better watch him. He could be dangerous. He could be doing drugs. It's amazing, right? Now, she continues. It is tempting in a case like this, where illegal conduct by an officer uncovers illegal conduct by a civilian, to forgive the officer. After all, his instincts, although unconstitutional, were correct. But a basic principle lies at the heart of the Fourth Amendment. Two wrongs don't make a right. She continues as well. Although many Americans have been stopped for speeding or jaywalking, few may realize how degrading a stop can be when the officer is looking for more. The court has allowed an officer to stop you for whatever reason he wants, so long as he can point to a pretextual justification after the facts. Basically, she says that the ruling has classified all Americans as inmates in the prison industrial complex. Quote, by legitimizing the conduct that produces this double consciousness, This case tells everyone, white and black, guilty and innocent, that an officer can verify your legal status at any time. It says that your body is subject to invasion while courts excuse the violation of your rights. It implies that you are not a citizen of a democracy, but the subject of a carceral state, just waiting to be cataloged. Now, she also points out that in this very case, the court ignored mountains of evidence that police routinely harass Americans with unreasonable searches, like minorities, as I had mentioned before, and that legitimizing these stops undermines democracy as a whole. Quote, we must not pretend that the countless people who are routinely targeted by police are isolated. They are the canaries in the coal mine whose death, civil and literal, warn us that no one can breathe in this atmosphere. Now make no mistake, this ruling affirms that right now we are living in a police state subject to the whims of cops at any time. Now, I'm sure some of you will say, well, yeah, but if you have nothing to hide, then you shouldn't be worried about this. Well, that's not the point. The point is that our rights are being eroded. They're being violated. And it's not the liberals that are doing it. Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ginsburg all offered the dissent. So tell me, who does that leave? Look, we need structural reform in the justice system. And this ruling right here is an absolute disastrous step back for the Constitution and for civil liberties. We have to find a way to fight back within the system against the police state, against the loss of our Constitution. And I think the best way to do that right now is to make sure that we have a Supreme Court that actually believes in the Constitution, that believes in civil liberties, and I think that's the only way that we're ever going to get our rights back and to protect the rights that we have.